June 6, 1944. Before dawn, the largest amphibious invasion force in human history cuts through the choppy waters of the English Channel. Their destination, the heavily fortified beaches of Normandy, France. Their mission, to breach Hitler's Atlantic Wall and begin the liberation of Western Europe.
This Atlantic Wall was more than just a line in the sand.
It was a monstrous 700-mile-long network of concrete bunkers, massive gun emplacements, and devious obstacles, all designed with one purpose: to throw the Allies back into the sea.
Millions of mines lay hidden beneath the sand, while jagged steel structures known as Czech hedgehogs waited to rip open the hulls of landing craft.
German machine gun nests were strategically placed to create overlapping fields of fire, turning the beaches into deadly killing zones.
For the thousands of young men huddled in their landing craft, the question wasn't if they would face hell, but how they could possibly survive it. How could any conventional army overcome such a perfectly engineered meat grinder?
The answer lay not in conventional warfare, but in one of the most unconventional and bizarre collections of military hardware ever assembled. They were clumsy, strange, and utterly absurd to look at. Their official designation was the 79th Armored Division, but history would remember them by a much more fitting name: Hobart's Funnies.
This is the untold story of the weird tanks that saved D-Day.
To understand why these strange machines were created, we must travel back 2 years, to the disastrous morning of August 19, 1942. The target was the French port of Dieppe. The plan, Operation Jubilee, was a full-scale raid intended to test German defenses and gather intelligence. It was a frontal assault, spearheaded by nearly 5,000 Canadian infantrymen. The planners believed that tanks landing directly on the beach could provide the crucial fire support needed to break through. They were tragically mistaken. The steep shingled beach at Dieppe became a graveyard for armor. The tank tracks couldn't get a grip on the loose stones.
Concrete barriers, which were supposed to be demolished, proved impenetrable. All 27 tanks that made it ashore were lost, either bogged down, disabled, or destroyed.
Without armored support, the Canadian infantry were cut to pieces. In less than 10 hours, over 60% of the assault force was killed, wounded, or captured.
Dieppe was a bloodbath, but from its ashes rose a critical lesson. You cannot launch a successful amphibious invasion without specialized equipment to overcome beach defenses.
A conventional army, no matter how brave, was not enough. The task of solving this impossible problem fell to one of Britain's most brilliant and controversial military minds, Major General Percy Hobart.
Hobart was an engineering visionary, a pioneer of armored warfare.
He was also abrasive, eccentric, and had a knack for clashing with the military establishment. But with the fate of the invasion hanging in the balance, the British High Command knew he was the only man for the job. He was given command of a new unique unit, the 79th Armored Division. Their mission wasn't to fight in traditional battles, but to become a corps of engineering specialists, creating the tools needed to crack the Atlantic Wall. The result was a menagerie of mechanical marvels, each designed to solve a specific deadly problem. They were soon nicknamed Hobart's Funnies. The first and most fundamental challenge was getting tanks onto the beach in the first wave, ready to provide immediate covering fire.
The solution was the dday tank, short for duplex drive, but affectionately known as the Donald Duck tank.
Engineers took a standard M4 Sherman tank and surrounded it with a large, collapsible, waterproof canvas screen. When raised, this screen displaced enough water to allow the 33-ton tank to float. Power was provided by two small propellers at the rear, driven by the tank's own engine. The idea was simple. Launch these swimming tanks from ships several miles offshore, let them swim to the beach, drop their screens, and start fighting.
It was a brilliant but perilous concept. As one veteran operator recalled, you felt terribly vulnerable.
The canvas screen was the only thing between you and the bottom of the channel. In rough seas, it was a terrifying ride. Once ashore, the next threat was the millions of landmines the Germans had buried. To counter this, Hobart's team developed the Sherman Crab flail tank. Mounted on the front of a Sherman was a large, rapidly rotating cylinder studded with heavy iron chains.
As the Crab advanced, the chains would violently beat the ground ahead, detonating any mines in its path.
It was a brutal but effective way to clear a safe lane for the troops following behind.
The flail could clear a path at about 1.5 miles per hour, throwing up a massive cloud of dust and debris.
For the infantry, seeing a crab at work was a godsend. "You just followed in its tracks," one soldier remembered. "You trusted that machine with your life."
But what about the concrete bunkers and pillboxes that were impervious to naval shells?
For these, Hobart's engineers created the Churchill Aver, or Armored Vehicle Royal Engineers. This modified Churchill tank was a true multi-tool. Its most fearsome weapon was the 290mm petard mortar. It fired a 40-pound projectile nicknamed the Flying Dustbin, which was essentially a massive demolition charge. It was inaccurate at long range, but up close, it could obliterate concrete fortifications with a single, devastating blast. And for the German soldiers hiding within those fortifications, there was an even more terrifying weapon, the Churchill Crocodile. This was a flamethrower tank. It towed a 400-gallon armored trailer filled with flammable liquid, which could be pumped through the main gun to unleash a jet of fire over 100 meters long. The Crocodile was a psychological weapon as much as a physical one. Often, the mere sight of it preparing to fire was enough to force a German garrison to surrender.
No one wanted to be incinerated. Hobart's ingenuity didn't stop there.
The German defenses included wide anti-tank ditches. The solution? The fascine carrier. This Avery carried an enormous bundle of wooden poles weighing several tons on its front. It could drop this bundle into a ditch, instantly creating a makeshift bridge for other tanks to cross. What if the beach itself was too soft and muddy for vehicles to cross? The answer was the bobbin tank. This Avery carried a giant reel of canvas matting. As it moved forward, it would unroll this carpet onto the ground, creating a solid path for the trucks and tanks following behind. Finally, there were the countless steel and wooden obstacles designed to halt the advance. For these, there was the simple but effective armored bulldozer.
These were standard Caterpillar bulldozers fitted with armor plating, allowing their drivers to clear paths and build ramps while under enemy fire.
Together, this bizarre squadron of machines was a complete toolkit for deconstructing the Atlantic Wall. Each funny was a key designed to unlock a specific part of Hitler's coastal fortress.
In the spring of 1944, with preparations for D-Day reaching their final stages, Major General Hobart arranged a full demonstration of his Funnies for the top Allied commanders. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower was there, as was the commander of the American ground forces, General Omar Bradley. Hobart proudly showcased each of his creations. He demonstrated how the Crab could clear a minefield, how the AVRE could demolish a concrete wall, and how the Crocodile could unleash its terrifying jet of flame. The British commanders were deeply impressed. The Americans, however, were skeptical.
General Bradley, in particular, was unconvinced. He believed that the existing American solutions, relying on naval bombardment, air support, and standard tanks brought ashore on landing craft, would be sufficient.
He felt the Funnies were too specialized and that training crews to operate them would take too much time.
In a decision that would have fateful consequences, the U.S. Army declined the British offer to supply them with Hobart's Funnies. They made only one exception, the amphibious DD tank. They agreed to equip 2 tank battalions with them for the landings.
For all the other obstacles on the beaches, the American soldiers would have to rely on their own courage and conventional weapons. It was a gamble, a belief that firepower and bravery could overcome specialized engineering. On Omaha Beach, that gamble would be put to the ultimate test.
As H-hour arrived on the morning of June 6th, the difference between the American and Commonwealth beaches was stark. On Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches, the British and Canadian forces unleashed Hobart's Funnies.
The first ashore were the swimming DD tanks. Despite the rough seas, a significant number made it to the beaches, their 75mm guns immediately engaging German positions and providing crucial fire support for the vulnerable infantry. One Canadian soldier at Juno Beach later said, "Seeing those Shermans coming out of the water like sea monsters, already firing. It was the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen."
Behind them came the rest of the mechanical menagerie. Crab flail tanks advanced relentlessly, their chains thrashing the sand, detonating mine after mine and clearing safe paths through the carnage.
Churchill Avers trundled forward, their petard mortars firing flying dustbins that shattered concrete pillboxes.
Where German resistance was particularly stubborn, the crocodiles moved up, spewing massive jets of fire that forced terrified defenders to either surrender or burn. The Funnies were not invincible. Many were knocked out by German anti-tank guns, but they performed their function magnificently. They systematically dismantled the Atlantic Wall piece by piece, allowing the infantry to get off the beaches and push inland.
Casualties were still heavy, but the system worked. The British and Canadians secured their beachheads and began to advance.
20 miles to the west, at Omaha Beach, it was a different story. It was hell on earth. The pre-landing naval and aerial bombardment had been largely ineffective, leaving the German defenses of the veteran 352nd Infantry Division almost completely intact. The American plan relied heavily on their own dday tanks, but the sea at Omaha was far rougher. The tanks were launched too far from shore into treacherous swells. Of the 29 tanks launched from the 741st Tank Battalion, 27 were swamped by waves and sank to the bottom of the channel, taking their crews with them.
Only 2 made it ashore. The infantry of the 1st and 29th Divisions were now on their own. As the ramps of their Higgins boats dropped, they were met with a murderous hail of machine gun and mortar fire from the bluffs above.
There were no crabs to clear the mines, no avars to demolish the bunkers, no crocodiles to silence the machine gun nests. The men were pinned down on the open beach with nowhere to go.
The first wave was decimated. Company A of the 116th Regiment lost over 65% of its men in the first 10 minutes.
The tide was coming in, littered with the bodies of the dead and the cries of the wounded. For a time, it seemed the landing would fail. General Omar Bradley, watching from the cruiser USS Augusta, seriously considered abandoning the beach and diverting the remaining troops. It was only through sheer, unbelievable acts of individual bravery, small groups of soldiers led by junior officers and NCOs, finding gaps in the defenses and slowly, painfully, fighting their way up the bluffs, that a fragile foothold was eventually gained. But the price was staggering. By the end of the day, there were over 2,500 American casualties on Omaha Beach, more than all the other Allied beaches combined. Many historians and veterans agree. Had Hobart's Funnies been available at Omaha, the story would have been tragically different.
The specialized tools designed to break the Atlantic Wall were absent, and the American soldiers paid the price in blood.
The success of D-Day was the result of immense courage, meticulous planning, and overwhelming industrial might. But it was also a story of innovation. Hobart's Funnies were a testament to creative thinking, a recognition that old problems sometimes require new and even strange solutions. They were the brainchild of a maverick general who wasn't afraid to challenge conventional wisdom. They were operated by brave crews who piloted these bizarre contraptions into the heart of the enemy's deadliest defenses. On the Commonwealth beaches, they saved countless lives and ensured the invasion's success. Their absence at Omaha served as a grim reminder of their importance. They may have been called funnies, but their contribution to victory was deadly serious. They were the weird, wonderful, and absolutely essential key that unlocked Fortress Europe and opened the final chapter of World War II.